Okay, so if there's nothing else on assignment 13, then we can look at assignment 14, which I think is it's a challenge. So I think at one of the previous tutorials, it was Mzwai from Saib said, is assignment 14 compulsory? And I think that's because it's a big assignment and it's not simple. It's not compulsory, but I think it is an important thing to do, especially if you're more of into the collection management side of things. So if you're responsible for a collection overall, then I think it is important to start thinking like this. And if you're working as a team, then you do the assignment as a team. So assignment 14, not compulsory, but I think it is a very important assignment to try, especially for those who are in more of a management position. Okay, so I'm just going to look at what the guidelines say. So there has been quite a detailed guidelines that are developed. So it's the development of a collection management and curation plan for a single well-defined collection. So I think just obviously in an institution or in the collection section, you'd have a much bigger, broader plan that covers everything. But just for the purpose of this exercise, it's just to look at a collection. So what do you need to do in the next 3 years for a particular? Sorry about that. Connection just dropped. Let me go back to that. The whole thing about developing a plan is to understand what the risks are to that collection and what you need to do to address them. That's what the plan is about. So it's really a matter of looking at and thinking about those 10 agents of deterioration or destruction as the main kind of focus. So, we've got those 10 agents, which are the biggest risk and what do you need to do to manage it? And so it's putting it into a plan. So what I've said here is you don't have to worry about the documentation for this particular assignment. You can include it. So that would be your policy, your procedures, your workflows, your standards. You can include it in the assignment if you want to, but you don't have to. We're not including health and safety hazards for staff or visitors or disaster management. It's really just about the curation of that collection. So what you need to do is to go back to where we've been talking about the risks to the collections, and you've done assessments and you've looked at what needs to be done and you've looked at mitigation, and you need to pull out everything that you found out through those different assessments. So I've mentioned assignment 10 if you've got a wet collection, assignment 11 if you've got a dry collection. Remember, you looked at it, you assessed all the different aspects of those 10 agents of deterioration, and you've looked at what needs to be done. You can also go back to assignment 9, which is about the collection, storage, and organization, and see from that assessment what needs to be done for the storage. It probably will overlap a bit with the other 2 assignments. What I haven't put here, but I think it's really important, is to go back also to assignment 3 and 4, which was about risk assessment for the collection. So I'm just going to pull up my, so this, when we did assignment 3, this was about doing a risk assessment, and I made up an example of a collection just to be able to populate the template. So there was a spreadsheet for assignment 3, And I think this slide kind of shows a lot of the situation in collections that is just, you just live with it. So, for example, fading labels that are not really appropriate, plastic bottles, bad lids, the wrong kind of cabinets, cracked walls, untidy, messy spaces outside, damaged roofs. And some of these are in your control, and some of them are not in your control. And so the thing to focus on is those that are your direct responsibility, your direct control. So things like polytop bottles, the lids pop up and the specimens dry out, pencil fading, field labels and no proper labels, plastic bottles. Those are very easily managed by the people who are responsible for that collection. The broken roof, the cracked walls, you can't yourself fix those. They're often not under your area of control. But what you can do is you can keep communicating that there's a problem to your managers or to the people responsible. So you can't fix it, but you can keep alerting them that this is a risk to the collection. The same with wooden cabinets. So if you wanted to replace those cabinets with metal ones, it is, if the budget is available, then it is within your control. But if your manager just keeps telling you there's no budget, there's nothing you can do, you can just keep highlighting the risks of not addressing it. And the outside of the building, again, you know, it creates an environment for pests, for damp, for mold, just for general deterioration of the building. There's not much in your control that you can do, but you can highlight it to management. So you've got to think about what's directly in my control, what's directly my responsibility, but then also what can I influence? So I'm not going to just close my eyes to it and give up on it. I can raise it with the relevant people. So I just put that slide in just to sort of show how you know, when you're developing a plan and when you're trying to manage things, you have to think carefully about what to tackle. But to just leave things where you know that they are a risk and it is in your control, that is a serious thing. And I think that what happens is you just get used to having things that are wrong and you don't deal with them. You just deal on a day-to-day basis with what you need to, and there's no longer-term plan for addressing issues. So that's what this exercise is about. That's what the webinar was about. It's really about trying to upgrade and to change from where there's lots of risks to where the risks are removed or reduced by doing something. So this is from the third topic. So from the webinar, I think the third webinar, where we looked at different risks. And there was a way of analyzing those risks so that you don't try and tackle every single possible risk. You identify which are the most severe ones. So which ones would have the biggest impact. So they happen very often or they happen very fast. Those are severe risks. And when they happen, they have an impact on the collection that's very severe. Either specimens are lost completely or a large proportion of the collection is affected. So those red ones and the others higher up there are the catastrophic or the extreme risks. So if you go back to that assignment and look, and we had to score the magnitude of the risk. So we identified if there were any catastrophic, any extreme, any high, and then it goes down to less serious, so medium risk or low priority, low risk. I mean, there's a risk, but it's not going to be, it's unlikely to happen, or if it happens, it's not going to have much impact. So go back and have a look and just remember this sort of wheel of risk management. So we had to identify the risks, we had to analyze them and score them. We had to evaluate, so which ones are we going to tackle? And then we had to decide about treating them. And then we have to monitor whatever actions we take. So this plan also has to consider what we looked at, what we found, and what we decided to do about the risks. So in assignment 4, so also go back to assignment 4, go back to the webinar and look at what you said for the mitigation of the highest risks. So what that exercise asked you to do was to pick out your top, if there's catastrophic, if there's extreme, if there's high risks, pick those out, and then look at whether you can avoid them, whether you can block them, whether you can detect them and monitor them, and whether you can respond. And recover was really if that risk has happened. So we're not that interested in that at the moment. And you need to look at it at different levels. So the level of a region, site, building, and those may be outside of your control. You can't influence unrest or load shedding. There's not much you can do to avoid it, but you may be able to address it in some way, but not at a region level. You're not going to be able to change things that are happening at a region, but you might be able to change things in your building. You might be able to avoid or block in the collection room, in your cabinets, and in your packaging or your containers. So go back and look at what you said you need to do, and pick out things there. So you're going to combine that information about the risks, about what you said you need to do to mitigate them. You're going to combine that information with the assessment of your storage and organization and where are the issues that need to be addressed there. And then the assessment of whether it's a wet or dry collection. So there's lots of sources of information that's going to come in. And then what the guidelines take you through the steps. So identify which collection, you've done that before. Say how many staff there are and how much of their time, what percentage of their time do they have for that collection. Then go back through your old assignments. And if you haven't done them, maybe do them before you do this one. So it will be very difficult to do this assignment, assignment 14, if you haven't done 9 or 10 or 11 or 3 or 4. So if you've done no assessments, then you're going to really struggle. Okay, so go and get all of that information, and there's some additional information that probably won't be in those other assignments. That's about backlogs in accessions. I'll put my backlogs in accessions. So do you have any material waiting to be accessioned? And then also, do you have specimens that are not captured in the database yet? Or the other, maybe other quality control issues for the data. And then you've got to focus. So we'll look at the we'll look at the template that you have to populate. You're going to basically be pulling all the information from those assignments. All right, so let me just stop sharing this and let's actually look at the at the templates. So it's quite a big template. Okay, so what I've done here, I've just used my wet collection. I've just pretended it was a wet collection. I just copied and pasted everything from assignment 10 into here. And I deleted the worksheet here that said dry collection. So you can, if you're using a dry collection, you can just delete the wet collection worksheet, the other way around. But don't override. There's a whole lot, there's a few things at the bottom that are not in assignment 10 and 11. And that's about collection organization. So just checking whether there's any reorganization that needs to be done. And then also backlogs in accessions. So this is additional, it's not in assignment 10 and 11. Data management is also additional. So now you've got all this information, you can fill in or do the assessment for the collection organization. So is your collection organized according to a recognized system? So is everything perfect? It's organized according to a specific classification system, and there's nothing that needs to be addressed. Or like here, I said, it's organized according to a classification system, but it's an old, outdated one. But we don't think that updating is the best option because the classification system keeps changing as people do molecular studies. So we don't want to run around changing. But what does need to be done? So I think some of the genera might be situated under the wrong family in the collection, and we need to go and check that and maybe move them around. So this is just asking you, do you need to do any work on the organization of the collection? Do you need to free up space in some cabinets or on some shelves? Are some overcrowded, or do you need to absorb new material? So you can fill in that and say what needs to be done. Or do you need to do scientific curation? So need to go back and reorganize. So this species was in that genus. Now someone's published a paper and moved it to another genus. In the collection, you've got to go and change put the new identification label on, and you've got to move it from where it is to under the new genus. Maybe you don't do that in your collection, and then you're not going to bother. And then your backlogs in accession. So here, make a list of not every specimen, but if you've got, so a survey was done and this material came in and it's sitting there, it's waiting to be accessioned. I've also got material from a student who did a MSc. So that's come in. I haven't accessioned that yet. And then I've got lots of little 111 specimens. The public bring them, somebody drops them off. The receptionist at the museum brings me something she found in her garden. And I haven't recorded any of those. I just shove them onto a shelf. So this is like what's there, what's your accession that are waiting, your backlogs, and then how many and for how long. There's about 40 samples here, there's 80 samples there, there's about 100 there. And then what needs to be done? So do they need to be sorted, separated, identified, rebottled, labeled, data capture, and integrated into collection? So you can see some of them will have a lot of work. Some it's already identified, but it needs to be cataloged. There is data, but it needs to be transferred into a database, new labels printed and inserted, and the specimens need to be integrated. So understand what work needs to be done there. And then your data management. So how many of your specimens are captured in the database? Is it all? With, if there are that are not in the database, about how many specimens, and what needs to be done. So it may be full data capture. Have you done any quality control on your data? And that would be running something like Open Refine, but it may be just doing some other kind of check against your catalog book. So is there any quality control that needs to be done? And then georeferencing, you might decide georeferencing is really important. Or you might say we actually need to do georeferencing of about 4,000 records. That we've done hardly any. And just leave it at that. You can decide. Okay, so you've identified all the things in that assignment 10. And now with that additional information. So what needs to be done to meet the standards? So remember I said to you when we did this tutorial for 10 and 11, that it's useful to highlight in red what needs to be done. And now this is why it's important, because you're going to pull those things into an action table. So I've highlighted here, you know, we need to ensure that there's regular servicing of our air conditioners. We may need to replace one. We need to look at our ventilation system because there's ethanol vapor buildup, and that's a fire risk. And then we need blockout blinds. We need barriers on our shelving. We need to reorganize the collection where there's overcrowding, and we have to check that the shelves are not permanently damaged. So all of these things in red are actions that we need to do to upgrade the curation of that collection and to remove most of the risks. You can also look back at assignment 4 about the risk mitigation, and you can add anything here as well. So if there's other things that are not covered here, just add them as a list here, or you can do it on the next tab. So there's a little bit of adding information, but basically that first tab you've done. Now you need to think about, you know, you might have such a long list of actions that need to be done, so many risks, and you've got to think about what staff you've got and what money you've got. And you've got to try and focus on what will be the most important things to do. So just think about in the next 3 years, what is our overall aim? Let me just make this a bit bigger. What is the overall aim for the collection in the next 3 years? Well, obviously we want to mitigate or remove the major risks to the collection. So it's high level, your aim is a high level statement. But then you've got to think, so in the next 3 years, what are going to be our priority objectives? What are we going to try and achieve? So you list those objectives, you can list them in any order. So what I said, we really need to upgrade our storage infrastructure and consumables, because when I look back at those other assessments that I did, I saw that in my risk assessment, there was an extreme risk from our polytop bottle lids popping open and the plastic bottles and incorrect lids. So go back and look. Okay, so that's an objective. Another objective I identified is that we have to monitor these risks. We have to be able to give anybody an answer of what's the status of the risks and what's impact is, what we're doing, what impact is it having. And then the risk of fire in the collection storeroom is an extreme risk. And so we have to, an objective is to address that risk. I don't like those specimens sitting there, that backlog of like 200 odd specimens, and they're going to be lost. So an objective is to address that backlog. I've got another objective. I have to ensure that there's stable low temperature, because that's one of the big risks to a wet collection. And I also see that we haven't done anything about our labels, and that's a disassociation risk. And so we have to address the risk of deteriorated labels. So that's the list of objectives, and you can see they are linked to that aim. So I've broken down that aim into what are the major risks. And I've gone back and I've said, why? Okay, now I need to prioritize. So if I have to list these objectives from 1 to 7 in order of priority, which is the most important one to deal with. And what I did, I went back and I looked at my risk assessment, and the highest score, risk score, was for fire. Because that can happen very quickly and I can lose that whole collection. So it's critical that before we do anything else, we must make sure that we've addressed the risk of fire. So it's number one priority. Then also, when I look back at my risk assessment, I saw that an extreme risk was also the bottles and the polytops popping open. So I'm going to make that my second priority. And then I also had an extreme risk for temperature. So the temperature was fluctuating because my air cons weren't working properly. Have to address that. You can't live with that fluctuating temperature. So you can see, so I've gone through and prioritized them. And now in that template, it asks you, sorry, and it's quite hard to show this just because it's such a big table. Let's see if I can reduce the size a bit. I hope you can see it. So now you've got to look at what are the actions needed for each objective. And then you've got to say whether it's a routine or ongoing action, or if it's a once-off intervention. Is there a target for it? So how many do you want to do, or how often do you need to do it, or by when do you want to do it? How long will it take to achieve that target, or complete it, or to carry out the action each year if it's routine? So how much time will this take? And then prioritization of actions. So how important is it to achieving the objective? So can you achieve the objective without doing this action? If it's essential, it means that if you don't do this action, you won't be able to achieve that objective. And then what resources are required? So what equipment, what consumables, and then how many staff, and approximately how many days would they need in a year to be able to do this work. And then assess the feasibility. So is it going to be affordable? Is it going to be possible, but you'll need extra staff and maybe some additional budget? Or is it just not going to happen in the next 3 years? So you can give a brief explanation. And then you can sort of select which actions you're going to do. So if something's essential and it's feasible, it's like you have to do it. It's a score of 1. If it's essential, but it's very high money or time, then you can score it a 2. If it's moderately important, but it's feasible and you can do it, then you can score it a 3. And then there's other scores there, so you can work down. So you're probably not going to bother with actions that score a 4 or a 5 or a 6, because it'll take up your time. It's not very important, or it's not really feasible. So don't invest lots of time, lots of money in doing things that are not essential. And I think that that's where there's often a challenge for the collection staff. There isn't that prioritization. So things are rotting in the bottles, but they're doing georeferencing, you know. So it's very important to get that prioritization right, or you spend so much time trying to procure or trying to get money for something that you're never going to get anyway. So it's very important to think about this. So then under each of your objectives, you're going to take them from your list above and you're going to put them here, objective 1, objective 2, and this is in order of priority. So the first one is to address the risk of fire in the collection storeroom. So go back to your table now, where you had this whole assessment. And look under fire here, fire suppression. We've got a good one, I said, you might not have. But what I said, we don't really need anything more, but we need to make sure that it's serviced every 6 months. So that's an action, it's an ongoing routine thing. We did say here, I didn't highlight it in red, but I probably should have. So there is an electrical socket, which is installed at floor level. That must be disabled or removed. So that must be taken across to your 3-year plan. And then the light switches were fine, but my ventilation system, there's ethanol vapor build up, and that is a fire risk. So then you should take that across to your plan. And you can check if there's anything else here related to fire. I think those are the main ones. So I didn't put them all in, I just put the 2. So regular checking of a fire suppression system. We've got the fire suppression, but we need to make sure that this happens. And then also we need that removal of an electrical socket. So 2 things, quite simple. One is a routine, one is a once-off, the removal of electrical socket in storeroom. So that's a once-off action. So your regular checking of fire suppression, it's twice a year. It's going to take probably the collection managers or admin person 2 days in a year just to phone the service provider, make sure that they come in, show them around, check what they say, you know, so that it is a cost in time, even though we're going to have a service provider. But it's essential that we do this. If we don't service these fire suppression system, then we won't be able to achieve that objective. And so you work through it. What do you need? You need a servicing contract. You need about 1 to 2 days of admin time. And it is feasible. I mean, the cost may be 20,000 Rand a year for that servicing contract, but it's high, it's essential, and it is feasible. We have to do it. And then for the removal of electrical sockets, so there will be, it's a once-off thing. It's not going to take very long. You can do it in your first year, done. So I just want to check. Okay, it seems like quite a lot of people are having problems with load shedding. I understand that it is very bad at the moment. I think it's affecting quite a lot of people. And if necessary, we can run this assignment tutorial again in the new year. But if some of you might want to start working on it, so we'll go through it. Okay, so can you see removal of the electrical sockets? It can be done. It'll again take a bit of admin time to set it up. It's not essential. So you can still, you can put a piece of sticky tape over it so nobody uses it. It's not absolutely essential, but it's quite doable. All right, so this is what you're doing here. You're going through each of your objectives, you're checking back to your assessment plan, and you're pulling out what are the actions that are needed and putting them under the right objective. And then you're deciding if it's a once-off. So I need to order these 500 jars. It's once off. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in year 1. I can't replace bottles unless I order these new ones. I need these polypropylene lids. Again, it's a once-off. So it may, you might have to do it again in 5 years' time, but in a 3-year period, you're going to do it once. It's not routine, ongoing. So think about who's going to do it, how much time it's going to take, how much it's going to cost. Installing that barrier, it's essential. We can't prevent those bottles falling off the shelves unless we install that barrier. It's once off. So you can go through, it's just a matter of flicking between your different sheets and transferring information. In the assessment, we found that there were some jars that were the level of ethanol was a bit low, some it was too high, and so immediately what we can do is we can go and get everything sorted out. So that's a once-off. So we're going to once-off go and address the levels, and we're going to do it in year 1. It'll probably take us 5 days in total. It's essential to address the risk of drying out. We're going to need ethanol. It's going to take the collection technician 5 working days to do it. It's going to cost us about 4,000 Rand for the ethanol, probably less. And it's essential and quite feasible to do it. Then we also had a whole lot of bottles where there were too many specimens in the bottle. So the ratio of specimens was too high. And what we said is that we have to go and split or move to bigger jars. It's about 50. We have to address that. It's a once-off. We'll do it and then we'll solve that problem. And we can do it in year 1. It'll take 10 days, 10 working full. If we look at how many hours in the day, so if you work all day, it will take 10 days. It's absolutely essential. We're going to need bottles, 2 work weeks for a collection technician, and then think about the cost. So don't get too bogged down if the cost, I've just estimated about how much. Okay, and then replacing the ethanol for the most severely discolored jars. It may be routine, but it could also be once off. So you're going to go and fix it now, and then after that, it's going to be routine, ongoing. Alkamon tablets, a once off purchase, once off put them in all the jars. It's moderately important. So you can still manage ethanol concentration without Alkamon tablets. So it's not essential. It's quite important. It helps you, but it's not essential. Okay, then one of the objectives was to ensure regular monitoring. And all I did was from the previous worksheet, I looked at what monitoring is needed for a wet collection. So you have to monitor preservative levels. You have to monitor preservative concentration, container condition, labels, and your fire suppression system. So those are the essential monitoring that needs to happen. And those will all be routine. So you've got to do them regularly forever. And you've got to say how frequently, so every 3 months or once a year. And if you think about it, container condition, you can monitor that at the same time you monitor your preservative levels. So think clever as well, think smartly. You're not going to go and check all the levels and then you're going to have a separate process for checking all the containers. Rather do it at the same time. You might record it differently, but you're not going to go and do it separately. And the labels you can also combine with something. So when you check ethanol concentration, check the quality of the label or the condition of the labels. Temperature, you need your data loggers. They must be regularly checked. It might be every 2nd day or twice a week. And then we've already talked about the fire suppression system. It's above. So here you're going to think about, you know, how many days, working days, working days would it take to check the ethanol level in your whole collection? Or if it's a dry collection, how many days, full days, if you work from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon with your tea and lunch breaks, how many days will it take you to do a full inspection of the insect drawers for pests? How many days does it take you to check your sticky traps for pests? So think about that, because it's very important for your planning. For your data loggers, for temperature, I said it will probably take you 2 hours a week. And that's for for downloading the data, for doing the records. So in a year, it'll take you 12 days, 12 full days in a year. So that means I've got a budget for the collection technician to spend 12 days, not in a chunk, but spread out to be able to do this work. Okay, and then what you might find is that if you go back to your risk assessment and your collection assessment, you might find some red things here that don't fit under any of your objectives. And you can still pull those across and you can see how important they are for you. Because there may be some critical ones that fall through the cracks and you don't want to do that. I don't think that I've got any here. And then also check your, so the collection organization, I didn't put it as an objective. So it doesn't fit under an objective. But I might want to pull this action of reorganizing the genera. I might want to put that in and see whether we can fit it in to do it. The accession backlogs are there. I haven't put an objective for data. I can see... these will be actions that are needed. I can put them there, I can transfer them across, but they probably won't come out as a high priority. They would be done if the staff have spare time in their work plan once you've budgeted the time for everything else. Okay, so that's quite a lot of work to go through it. And then what needs to happen is you need to break it down for 1 year, so for the next year. So here you're going to list all the actions that scored 1 and 2 and maybe 3. And you list those here. So that means going back to your 3-year plan, seeing which ones scored 1 or 2 or 3. In your feasibility. If they scored 4 or 5 or 6, you can leave them out. On mine, all of them scored 1 or 2 or 3. So you transfer them here and you say, okay, in year 1, what is your target? So are you going to rebottle and split all 50 overcrowded jars, or are you going to do only 20 of them or 30 of them? So what's your target, or how often do you need to do it? 3, 4 times a year, twice a year, once a year? And then what is the staff requirement? So how much of their time do they need to spend on this particular action? So if you worked out it's going to be 15 working days, do you split that amongst 2 staff and they give it 7 days each? Or if there's only 1 staff member, it's 15 days for collection technician, because there is only 1. There may be 3 of them and you can split it amongst 3 of them. And then this is also just about, remember what equipment or consumables or other resources you need in year 1, and what is the budget needed in year 1. So you're going to work through all of that and populate it. Remember that it's only year 1. So go back to the 3-year plan. anything that can be done in year 2, or that you've only just thought needs to be done in year 2, you don't put it into your year 1 plan. So it's really about checking, does this need to be done in year 1? So the once-off things, you know, these were quite quick and easy. They will go into your annual plan. Anything that is routine, okay, sorry about that. We seem to really be struggling with connection here again. Okay, so I'm hoping it's sharing. So what I was saying is, for your annual plan, check in your 3-year plan what needs to be done in year 1. So if you said this is a quick, easy thing to do, it will be in year 1, as be transferred to your annual plan. If things are routine actions, so you're monitoring, you're checking, you're topping up, all of that's routine, then you that will have to go into your annual plan. So once you've put everything into your annual plan, you can start to see how much time you've given to your staff. You can see how much money you're going to need, and you can re-look at it. So, you know, if you total up, so this will say collection technician 1, and there may only be 1, and you go through and you add up all the days that you've allocated for them, and it might come out to 600 days. Well, then you either need to get more staff pulled in from somewhere else, or you need to reduce what you're planning. You might find that you've got 3 staff and each of them only now have 50 days work in a year. So then it means that you can either go and help someone else, or you can start to tackle some of those lower priority things that need to be done. The same with your budget. You might find that when you add up everything you needed in year 1, your budget, you go all the way to the bottom, everything, so your total number of person days, your total budget might be 6 million rand, and you know you're never going to get that. Then you can go back and flag actions that are just not going to happen in year 1, but they may need to go over to year 2, and we're not dealing with that in the assignment. Okay, so it's quite intense. I hope that I didn't get lost too often in that, going through all of it. It is intense. I think it will be a good exercise for a group to do, to sit. But first, get all your information together from your assessments. Start pulling it all together and going through it and seeing where you've flagged your risks, what needs to be done, either on an ongoing basis or as a once-off intervention, and then start filling in everything on that template. Talk about it, try and find out what sort of budget you have for that collection every year if you don't know. And sometimes you can ask for additional budget. It's about thinking of planning and what can be done, what might be possible if you push or you ask or you try and raise funds or get extra people in. Okay, so quite a avalanche of information. Let's get some thoughts on this one. So let's see if you think that it's doable and if you think you will tackle it, and what you think will be difficult. So Andrea, can we start with you?
Hi, Michelle. Yes, you can start with me. And yes, that was an avalanche. Now I'm glad that we have actually done most of our assignments. and with a lot of detail, as you've been telling all along. So we'll certainly tackle this, and we've got those as a backup. It is a lot. Yes, and we're certainly going to give this one a go.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, thanks, Andrea. Yeah, so I mean, also, it might not be perfect, you know. There might be gaps, there might be things that are not quite right, but it doesn't matter. It's actually about starting the process of planning to address things. And you'll, you know, it's fine. I don't expect it to be 100% perfect, 100% accurate. It's really to get people following a kind of a systematic process for deciding what they're going to do and how they're going to spend time and money. So don't get too hung up if it's not 100%.
I think I sometimes also forget to actually go back to the manual. All the information we need and pointers are all there. I just sometimes think we forget to use it. So yes, we will be whipping out our manual again.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, Manoli, we haven't heard from you this morning. What do you think about that assignment?
Good morning, everyone. Shoo,
Hi.
Michelle. It's long. It's a lot to do, but I think me and my group, it will be a learning process. So once we've done with all the assignments, the assignments, let me just say from assignment 3 to 10. So once we're done with that, I think we'll be able to do it. It is a lot, but at the end of the day, I think it would be a nice exercise to do and a learning curve for all of us. So yeah, we're definitely gonna try to have a boxing match with it. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Great. That's really so. I think 2 key points from both Andrea and Mashlodi. You have to do the other assignments first.
Yeah.
So don't try and tackle this one until you've done 3, 4, 10 or 11. And then to see it as a learning process. And like I say, don't worry if it's not 100% right, it's fine. It is about trying to learn. And working as a group, I think, is a very good way of learning. You'll learn from each other.
Yes.
Okay, good. And I'm glad you've got a positive attitude towards it. Yeah, you're going to tackle it. That's great. Okay, let's hear from the KZN Herbarian people, Sane, Manoli, or Mpumi.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Manoli.
So with assignment 14, we haven't really made a start with this one. We've been finishing up other stuff, but the tutorials really helped us in understanding what's expected. So after this meeting, we're just gonna, Sane, Mpumi and I, since we were attending this tutorial, we're just gonna have a quick meeting just to discuss a way forward with how we can split the load and yeah, take it from there. So we haven't made a start with this assignment yet.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I think I saw somebody saying, when is it? When you submit assignment 14. So if you want feedback on it, then you need to submit it by the 15th of January. If you don't worry about, if you're not worried about getting feedback, then it will just be submitted as part of your portfolio at the end of February. So yeah, so that would be the deadline. If you want feedback, 15th January. If you're not going to fuss with that, then it'll be with your portfolio. Okay, let's hear from Mandisa. What did you think about it?
I think that as everyone was saying, that seeing that it's a bit long, but I think because we're working as a team, we'll definitely be able to do it. I think it's better to work as a team because it comes with different minds and different aspects. So we'll try our best to do it to the best of our ability. Thanks.
Yeah, so this is where so are you in entomology, Mandisa?
Yes.
Yeah, and then Nelasiwe is in mollusk,
Malacology,
and Matabara is the
uh,
arthropod connection.
general, but he mostly works in the wet stuff,
Yeah.
with specimens, yeah.
So what you're going to have to think as a group is how do you are you going to do this plan covering all the collections you're responsible for, or should you just pick one and do one as an assignment? I think that's going to be easier.
That's what we've been doing for most of the assignments. I think we've been trying to pick one that we can focus on and answer as much as we can, answer the questions as much as we can based on that chosen
one.
On the chosen one, yes.
Okay. All right, good. Okay, good. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to raise anything about assignment 14? Sunny?
Yeah, Michelle, I think the kids are in the Herbarian team. I don't know what Manoli and Pume are going to say to this one. Girls, we need sarongs, we need flip-flops, we need to book the Elangeni hotel, we need a conference room, we need all the computers in there, and we need like a big, what do you call it, like that wall that you project stuff onto. Yeah, we need that so we can see all the work all at once. Please laughing. So we can see all the work all at once, because I don't see how else we're gonna do this one, because it obviously calls we have the work at least. We've got the assignment, just so that we can see all the things all at once, and everybody needs to be in, and we can all contribute to all, because they can tell you. The minute I saw this assignment, I was like, it's planning. Okay, Winston needs to take this one. I was just like, no. Yeah, but yeah, it makes sense. Obviously, Michelle, that not only do we do it, we can see the need for it. Definitely, that's without a doubt. But for each and every person to fully be on board and fully understand what's happening, I think we are going to have to see each other in person this time around. And I know it's scary that I'm the one who's saying that. Yeah, because we've been managing all of us off site, but like Manoli said, we were about to have a meeting immediately after this one, and yeah, I'll see what the other ladies have to say. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, so I also when I was just doing the sort of mock filling in the template, it is quite challenging and irritating to have to flick backwards and forwards across all your assignments. And I thought, what I actually would like is to print it, so that I've got print of these things in front of me, and I'm not having to flick across documents. So that is something. So to think about, how are you going to put all of this information in front of you, because that is important, because you'll see then where there's duplication or gaps, so that may be something to do, if possible, is to actually print out assignment 4, the tables from that, print out 10 or 11, whichever one you did. And yeah, you'll need paper and to scribble and to draw somebody. So I think that picture you painted about the boards and talking and is how this whole planning thing should be done.
Yeah, we just obviously wouldn't be able to afford the hotel. But yeah, you yes, no, but you got what I'm envisioning, Michelle, because you need to obviously have multiple screens up so that you can see all of them, and then we're drawing from this one for this section, we're drawing from that one for this section, and everyone is on board. That's my thing, because I really feel like we can't get away with and then this section, it's this person who's responsible for that, like we have been. And then we have a collation meeting where we're putting everything all together. I don't think for this one we can get away with that, because the planning part of it, we all need to contribute to that. And it needs to be a back and forth. It needs to be a dialogue. So as you were talking, I was just envisioning almost kind of like a mini conference, but for just us, you know, and we're going through it all. So like you've got it. You've got what I'm envisioning. Yeah, that all of it needs to be out. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so any last chance for any questions, comments, suggestions, encouragement? Okay, all right. So we've got a session. Yeah, somebody want to go? Sifiso?
Yes, thanks, Michelle, and good morning, everyone. I was like having mixed emotions, smiling and becoming sad in the process, because I'm a one-man soldier, so I'm not working in a group. I'm doing the assignments as a solo. So I feel a need to do assignment 14, but I feel that it will be very challenging. So I'm thinking of trying to do all the other assignment the best I can and see if I will have the momentum at the end to take assignment 14. And if need be, maybe I can contact my colleagues at KZN Herbarian and see how they are planning to work on this and see if I can apply some of their skills here at MOS. And yeah, but it will be challenging for me to work on this assignment as a solo mate.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I think the other challenge for you, Sifiso, is that you did the other assignments in a different place for a different collection.
Yes, and some we did it as a group. It's use Herbarian. So
yeah, so that's why you're not going to have all that information for where you are now. You don't have all the information at hand.
yes.
Because you've swapped institutions. So and like you say, it's one person, you're on your own, you're new in that institution. It probably isn't going to be feasible for you to tackle this very well. So, you know, under those circumstances, your efforts might be better to spend on the other assignments. And you learn from this planning process now, and you do it, you know, going forward in terms of your job. So not as an assignment later on, you'll be able to do it as a planning exercise for your responsibilities at work.
Okay, no, that sounds like yeah, that sounds like a good idea to do it that way, as a learning curve, not as an assignment. Otherwise I'll be stressed out.
Yeah. So there's no point in really stressing over this. That's not going to be worthwhile for you.
Thanks.
Okay. Good. All right. So, okay. So thanks everybody. I know it's been a long session this morning, but I hope it was useful. And thanks Fulu for reminding us and setting up everything, and Nick for doing the recording, and Chanel for being here and helping with organization, and to all of you for being here and asking questions and sharing with others your worries and what you've done so far. So thanks everybody, and enjoy your Christmas party, the Sandy people. So bye from me.